friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hello, my name is Kaelyn. I'm a historian in training for my PhD at Yale University. I'm also a content creator and business owner. But today I wanted to share a little bit about my outlining practice and how it is that I develop my ideas into writing for a new chapter. This is a practice that I started back in community college when I was working full-time as a professional athlete and taking night classes and online classes in order to transfer to university. And one of the important lessons I've learned since working through my PhD is that many of the practices that I began back in community college still work for me today. There's so much distracting and attractive content online that shows you all of the different study methods that people use, and you feel like you need to use them too. So I just want to add a little caveat that if you have a practice that works for you and it's been working for you historically, then you should just stick to it. This is perhaps just something to experiment with that might help your workflow, but it also might not. Trust your own instincts and see what works best for your brain, for your process. And let's go ahead and dive into how it is that I outline. A lot of my work as a historian begins with primary sources. So these are documents from the time period itself. I, in particular, studied the 17th century in colonial Virginia. And so I look at a lot of records from the colonial legislature. I look at the letters to the governor, letters from the crown, letters to the crown, etc. I also do a cursory scan of the secondary literature. This is articles and books written by historians themselves about the time period or about the subject matter that aligns with the chapter that I'm currently writing. This chapter in particular focuses on the period after the dissolution of the Virginia Company and the evolution of the General Assembly under King Charles I. And as I read, I begin working out of my dissertation diary. This is a specific notebook that I use for jotting down all of my ideas surrounding the dissertation. And I begin my outlining process by mind mapping. Basically, I have the general theme for the chapter, and as I'm reading and pulling sources, I'm going to go ahead and pull ideas and themes or dates and people that I think are going to be really important to highlight throughout the chapter itself. The intent for this is to be messy. It's to get all of my ideas out there so that way I can then organize it. My mind mapping process starts with this circle and then all of these extending arms, but you can make a mind map into whatever you want, whether it's a Venn diagram, a bunch of words on a piece of paper, a couple of sticky notes on a wall. A mind map is just a way for you to visualize all your ideas in one place. Oh my goodness. Well, I am really excited to interview you. You were one of the first people that I thought of when I was preparing the podcast and thinking about, who's like actually doing the public history and public intellectual work that I think many people aspire to. All right, the day is done. I have done my podcast recording for the Educated podcast, and it was such a great conversation with Annalisa. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. The day is done. It's time for me to go ahead and wrap up. I have had a very good, productive day for the dissertation, for content. I got the post up for Skill Store on LinkedIn. It's just been a very busy day, and now it is time to go ahead and wrap it up. Luckily, I don't have anything super structured in my plan for tomorrow, so I might let myself sleep in a little bit because I've been a tad under the weather. I've had a cold, and I need a bit of sleep. So I'm really excited about the launch of the podcast. I had such a good day with the dissertation. I was basically in study sessions with Accepted all day long, which was exactly what I needed in order to just get stuff done. So now I'm gonna go hang out with my partner. I'm gonna take the rest of the night off. I'm gonna read a book and take a absolutely blazing hot shower to blow out my sinuses because, as you can hear, I'm very snuffly.
And that's why they're paying the dollar that they're getting for
I'm weaving lessons in about outlining and my writing process alongside a week in my life vlog because as a public historian, somebody who is getting degree in history who produces historical research, but who also creates content online. I think it's important to find new mediums by which to take historical knowledge and connect it to the public. Now, many people love watching vlogs for their visual value and for their entertainment value. And what I like to do is just weave a few lessons about history along the way, so that way hopefully you walk away having learned something new.
I have been absolutely terrible about checking in today, but it's been just deep in the weeds on the dissertation and just some like life admin stuff. I needed to send off some Christmas gifts for friends. And what else did I do? I also did like my little mastermind call with some of the former team from Allie's. We've all just become really good friends, and so it's nice to chat with them. I have a night out with my friend Alex tonight where we're just going to go get some wine and hang out. She's somebody I met through Creator Leaders, but we've become pretty good friends, if I say so. I hope she agrees. And I'm just going to go home. I still have a little bit of time to get some work done, so I'm going to continue doing some readings out of the Billings book on Virginia statutes. Billings is in Warren Billings, not Billings is in money. But it's been a very good day so far. Sorry for not really properly checking in. It's just been a bit crazy, but it's a beautiful day. Got some nice lights out. Christmas gifts have been sent. We're ahead on our holiday, shopping, sending, etc. So, time to head home.
Now we're on to the next stage of my outlining process, which is to take that mind map, that disorganized bundle of ideas, and turn them into an actual ladder outline. Now, there are many different ways of actually outlining, but for me, this ladder outline is really helpful for me to visualize the coupling of ideas. It begins with an introduction, with a couple of different ideas and subsections, and then headings for the individual sections, some subsections, and then a conclusion. Now that I have a complete ladder outline on my computer, it's time to go ahead and fill it in. This starts with a bunch of quotes, which means that I actually need to go back to the reading stage. And this is one thing that's important to note. I don't know if other scholars do this, but as a historian, I often find that I'm flip-flopping between returning to primary sources, re-looking at the literature, and then going to writing. It's this constant kind of ping-pong of ideas, so that way I can structure my writing. I wish that it was simpler, but that's just simply what seems to be working for me, and it has worked historically, so I'm just gonna stick with it. Hello, it is the next morning, and I am working on the dissertation. I just had some work that I needed to do for the course that I'm helping as a coach for Passion. I just needed to get like a LinkedIn post up, and we also have one of the members of the PhD program who's defending her dissertation today, which means that when this video goes live, she's officially a doctor, so congratulations to Joangeli. But I was getting a post ready so that way we could celebrate her when she walks out of her defense. And now I'm just going to kind of dive in to work. So yesterday I got the beginnings of my outline for chapter 3 basically completely drafted, which is great. And I have currently about a page and a half. Essentially, it follows a very similar structure that you learned like in high school. So when you're writing as a PhD student, you're really using the very similar formula that you were taught, the introduction with the thesis statement, and then you have the different like body paragraphs, but it's just that they're sections, and then those sections have subsections. So currently I have 3 sections, and each section has either 3 or 4 subsections. I typically indicate those with headers. It just helps me when I'm writing. But the second step, if I have the time to do it, is actually to pull specific quotes and things into that outline in order to help me with the writing process. So that way I'm not constantly having to filter through the primary sources, the secondary sources, in order to find the quotes and things that I need to support that section. Now, with that said, when I'm on a time crunch, I don't take this step because it feels very slow. But at the moment, I am on a bit of a time crunch, but at the end of the day, what I really need is to write a good chapter. And so I have this third section, which is all about the constitutional crisis between 1652 and 1660, which is after the execution of King Charles I. And there's essentially this kind of challenge between Sir William Berkeley, who was the royal governor under Charles I, and the new government. He is a royalist. He's in support of Charles II being the next successor, the proper sovereign over the state of Virginia, or the colony of Virginia. I'm looking through some of the primary sources. The challenge is that his primary sources, Sir William Berkeley, they're compiled in a book, but Yale doesn't have it. I cannot buy it. And the only person or the only institution that I know that has a copy is Oxford. I need to figure out how to get to Oxford next week. But in the meantime, the other thing that's really interesting about that kind of constitutional crisis era is that there's more of a discussion about natural rights, consent of the governed, etc. And that plays into the kind of long-term intellectual history of natural rights as it's then discussed in the late 18th century when we get into the revolutionary period, which I personally find fascinating, but that's not directly applicable to what I'm looking at. How it is applicable is how we think of the rights of children. And this is what I argue is the time in which we begin to see this separation of the status and rights of English children and any children that are deemed other, which includes African children or African descendant children. And one of the sources for that essential divide, or like the discussion around children's rights, is the work of Holly Brewer. So Holly Brewer's By Birth or Consent, Children Law in the Anglo-American Revolution in Authority covers this period, or this kind of intellectual discourse, and it just helps kind of set the stage for what I'm hoping the rest of the dissertation will cover. So I have read this, I read it for comps, but when you're reading for comps, you are really focused on being able to regurgitate the argument, being able to talk about the source material, etc. You're not really getting into the weeds of the way that they're constructing that argument, and how each individual chapter kind of plays into it. So I'm returning to this in more, I guess, fine detail, essentially taking quotes and things that I find in here, putting them into my notes, and then anything that I think is directly applicable in the chapter, I'm going to go ahead and filter it into the outline. So the steps in my writing process essentially go ideation and mind mapping, 2, outlining, 3, reading and quoting, 4, putting that in the outline, and 5, writing. So it's a bit more of a complicated process, but it just helps me kind of mentally work through all of the material. And that's the process that I've used ever since university. I guess I kind of used it in community college, except the thing about when I was in community college was that I was working full time. So basically I was always writing essays at the last minute. So if you want information on how to write essays at the last minute, I do have a video on that. And I think that that still stands. But this is my process when I have a little bit more time to think through things. I hope that you enjoyed that little history lesson, and I would love to know in the comments what you've learned about history or the practice of doing history from watching my videos. I'm very curious what people actually get out of these videos. I'm really trying to make it valuable and educational, trying to teach you something a little bit about history or my practice, and just like to know what you get out of it. The rest of this day was really spent reading and adding things to that outline, but also working with my PhD cohort mates. Now, PhD is a program for doctoral students that we have with Accepted Society, and I actually get to participate as one of the students. So you'll see in a second that I do a little bit of thinking out loud in order to cement some of my ideas. Okay, so I'm trying to work through kind of mapping the way that patriarchal authority changed through the Reformation and then under James the First. Well, I guess like James the First and into Charles the First, there was like more of a power grab by the monarchy. All right, friends, that is the conclusion of the video. For the rest of the evening, I actually headed over to a holiday party at Jarndyce Books, which is a rare bookseller in Bloomsbury. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. I have some fun videos planned, so if you are not yet subscribed, then please make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you all soon. Bye, friends.